Thanks again to the British Council for the invitation. It's really great to be here. It's really great to see so many people. It's great to meet my fellow guests. And I'm going to talk about this topic, how to make the next city. Firstly, a couple of quick things about me. This is where I work, the Victoria and Albert Museum. I'm the curator of contemporary architecture and urbanism. This is an exhibition I did last year on the future of technology and how it relates to us and our culture. This is my book from a few years ago, which was about new models of practice and how architects can learn from people outside of architecture. And this is, well, I'm up the back here. This is Sadiq Khan, Mayor of London. Well, these are the design advocates for the Mayor of London, so we're advising him on design, and I'm going to speak a little bit about that work tonight. But first, I want to look back. I'm going to go back to 1936. Frank Lloyd Wright, probably the most famous architect of the early 20th century. He said, "Watch the little gas station. It's the engine of decentralization." So this is somebody who's designing entire cities. I mean, he has everything at his power. And yet he sees this thing popping up on the horizon, which he knows will be more powerful than anything that he can bring. And I think this is the point that I want to make today. It's the things that are in our peripheral vision now that are really going to have a big impact. And it's not the things that we want to happen. This is Melbourne. This is where I'm from. In Australia. And of course, Frank Lloyd Wright was right. This is the sprawl. You can see the city in the top right-hand corner, a small cluster of tall buildings, and then the rest of it just goes on and on forever, single story. Now, a lot of what you hear from architects and urbanists today is about walkability, density, about connected towns, about limiting growth. But actually, I think we've got a lot more new technologies, as well as the car, which are going to continue to spread cities out. And we need to take those very seriously. I'll go very quickly through these. Uber, decentralizing work. Amazon, decentralizing shopping. Solar panels, etc., decentralizing energy. You don't need to be close to the grid. Smartphones, this is a new project in London or in England where you can have GP appointments with your doctor over Skype. And we just heard from the Deputy Mayor about the impact of driverless cars, which could push us further out again. And another technology on the horizon, which is promised, is the Hyperloop, the super fast train, which could again allow you to commute from even further away. So this is the book that I'm working on. And then I guess if that's the reality or the coming reality, then I'm looking at what we can do next. How do we design for that reality? So I'm also going to go quite quickly through, I think, around 10 projects which are working in this space. This is in Rotterdam. It's a pedestrian footbridge that's been crowdfunded, so the citizens paid for it rather than the government. The names of the people who donated the money are carved into the bridge itself, so it becomes a one-to-one expression of that crowdfunding. What's most interesting for me about this project is all the new businesses that have come up around the bridge. So instead of, we think about architecture as costing a lot of money, this is architecture that's created a whole lot of jobs and didn't cost very much. The next project is called Een Maal. It's also in Holland, and it's a restaurant for one. So you can only go there and eat alone. And this is a kind of social infrastructure. So 1/3 of households in Holland, probably same here, probably it's certainly true in London, are single person households. And yet they don't feel able to go and eat in public. So this is a place where they can do that. The next project is in Japan. It's by the architect Go Hasegawa, and it's a community Airbnb. So it started off in a expo, but then they moved it to this very small town called Yoshino, and it's collectively owned by all of the people in the village so that they can earn money from the people who come to stay there. Residents, they make the beds, they welcome the new guests, but they can also use it for their community meetings. Next project, also in Japan. This is about integrating living and working. Wonderful little house. It's this brown one here. It was built on the tiny bit of land between 3 people's backyards. So it props up behind the houses that are already there. And it's designed as their office downstairs and then their house on top. But what's interesting is that during the different times of the day, that fluctuates. So in the middle, you have a living room, but you also have a meeting room during office hours. So it sort of gradient of publicness. The next one is a very simple idea. It's about community workshops, which anyone can use to build things or start a new business. And this is the kind of thing you could build there. This is called Wiki House, which is an open source construction system, another project that's come out of London. They've started with this building system, but what's interesting is where they go next, which is a heating system, water system, waste system, growing system, electrical system, and data systems. All open source. Anyone can use them and build their own businesses on top of this. Another project from the same architects called 00. This is called the Scale-Free School. And what they've done is they've built a school without building anything. So they just assembled all of the spare time within existing buildings in the neighborhood and pieced it together. So the local cinema is where they had lectures in the morning, the public library, cafe, workshops and so on. Next project is in Berlin. It's called the House of One, and it's a mosque, a synagogue and a church in one building. What this is doing is about, if we talk about decentralized cities where things spread out, this is a project which is about bringing people together and bringing cultures together. Another project from London, this is Crowdfund London, which is where if you're a local community, you raise some money for a project, the city will match the funds that you've raised in order to help you get started. Another project from the Mayor's office in London is called Public Practice. This is where smart graduates, mostly architects, get from the private sector, get placed in the public sector to work with local councils. In London, and I'm not sure if it's true here too, the budgets get cut and then the councils become reactive. They can only respond to what's thrown at them. These people are proactive. They're explicitly there to focus on the future. This is an electric Renault car. Renault didn't make any money out of it, so they open sourced it. And what these guys have done in the south of France is to kind of hack this car to make it drive very slowly but very powerfully, and now it works as a kind of local tool for the community. Last project. Theaster Gates, the artist, but who is very well known, White Cube, shows in Venice, but who studied urban planning, is in Chicago. He's been buying buildings in the south side of Chicago for very cheap and turning them into cultural centers. So this is his major project, the Stony Island Arts Bank, where he's turned it into a kind of museum, and the collection is two things. The back issues of Ebony and Jet magazine, which is an important magazine to the black community. And he also has the record collection of Frankie Knuckles, who's the house DJ from Chicago in the 90s. What's amazing about this project is that it uses culture as an engine of transformation. That's the end. I'm going to wrap up by saying all of these things are cheap, sustainable, they create lots of jobs, they work with the community, and they are not really very high tech. And I think this is how we're going to build the next city. Thank you.